The coolest part of what we have planned is what you're going to do in the breakout. So bear with me through some stories I'm going to share with you about our experience over the last 10 years of pivoting a business, because we're going to get into solving some really big problems that face our community, and we're going to do it together. I'm really excited about that. So let's rewind to 5 months ago. If you can even remember what life was like back then. In fact, let's take a poll. Amanda, sorry. I'm in charge of polling, guys. Took me, all right, launching a poll now. What were you doing on December 31st, 2019? If you just take a quick minute. Were you attending a Roaring 20s party, watching Netflix before that was the only thing you could do? Or had you consulted your crystal ball and started stocking up on toilet paper and Clorox wipes to sell to the rest of us? Looks like some of you are pretty prescient. All right, looks like about half and half, some party animals and some folks at home doing what they didn't realize we'd be doing for the rest of our lives, watching Netflix in your PJs. I can tell you personally, I was at a big party and we were laughing about the fact that in the 20s, they were having a big time in their tuxes and flapper dresses. We're dreaming of life in the old days. And let's just do a quick check to see how that naive wish turned out. So global pandemic, check. Dramatic and unpredictable stock market with nauseating downturns over a period of a few days, check. Widespread unemployment, yep, we've got that too. And it's only May. With murder hornets as the next big threat, I will not be surprised if a Sharknado is headed our way in June as we enter hurricane season again. All kidding aside, what we're experiencing reminds me of a quote attributed to Mark Twain. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And this feels a lot like the 20s of a century ago. Needless to say, no one is where we thought we would be 5 months ago, toasting our friends in our black tie best. But it doesn't do much to dwell on what could have been. Instead, we have to take a long, hard look at what the reality of the situation is and pivot to fit the current environment. And I know this from experience, because our company has managed a big pivot nearly a decade ago. And the best way to describe it is rebuilding the plane at 30,000 feet. When I first joined my father Powell at Secure Record Solutions in 2011, the business was solely focused on storing paper records, and it was a great business. Organic growth of 12%. Our existing clients with 100 boxes would send 12 more every year. Well, a lot's changed since then. The world has become a much more digital place. And isn't that a good thing? We would not be able to be productive today if it weren't for our ability to work remotely. Well, it wasn't good for our business at the time. And as the world was beginning to wake up to the idea of digital and paper records were becoming less common, we had to make a pivot if we were going to expect our business to go into the next generation. So we started by adding new service lines to diversify our revenue with existing clientele and market, about 11 counties around Tallahassee. First, we added shredding as a service line, trucks and routes, and soon we were serving clients within a 100-mile radius of Tallahassee. Both one-time purges to clean out storage buildings and regular shredding programs to keep up with the day-to-day destruction. We do that for hundreds of clients in the region now. And this business is on track to eclipse the original storage business when we started it 5 years ago. Next, we started seeing a need for scanning of records for companies digitizing their processes. So we started offering scanning services. This opened up our market well beyond the traditional 11 counties that we had to serve with physical deliveries. It's allowed us to serve clients in 48 states. And that addition of a new service allowed us to grow into others. We realized along the way that scanning is a good fit for some people who have long-term retention or often access certain documents, or maybe they're completing a digital transformation and they just need to get rid of the last little bit of paper. But because it's such a labor-intensive service, it can be very expensive and it's not a good solution for everybody. So this insight led us to the next business. We created a document management consulting solution that combined shredding, storage, and on-demand scanning when a client needed a file. This was designed to help folks that it didn't make sense to spend a lot of money to scan everything, but they still needed access to their documents digitally. And when clients' records were disorganized and mismanaged, we created a proprietary system of indexing to help clients figure out what they had in the first place so they could make better decisions about what to do with it. That's like applying a retention policy without really knowing what you have to apply it to. You can have a policy, it just doesn't help you deal with the records until you know what's in those boxes. These observations took us to the next level as we began to see our role in solving increasingly complicated problems related to business process transformation. We now count several of the Fortune 500 in our clientele, who we consult with on how to manage their retention program across hundreds of locations, all from our little corner of the world. In addition to countless professional offices, law firms, healthcare providers, and government agencies. Today, storage, the original business, as a standalone service, only makes up a third of our revenue, down from 80% when we started the big pivot. We have multiple service lines, with most clients utilizing a combination of them. And we have a diversified revenue stream, which helps us weather challenging times, such as the one we're experiencing now. SRS isn't alone in needing to pivot. Many businesses are born out of hard times. Procter & Gamble, who is in a good business with Clorox, oil tycoon family, the Hesses, Columbia sportswear retailers, and in the 2009 downturn, you might remember when one of the Airbnb board members came and joined us for a Power Forward session. Airbnb and Venmo were both founded during the last financial crisis. Their owners saw problems that they could solve and pivot from traditional businesses. For example, the story of Airbnb, where they were in traditional brick and mortar hotel business, and he decided to pivot to make everyone's home a hotel. This isn't just about businesses, though. All organizations are being faced with a choice to pivot or fail in the new normal of a post-COVID world. So I'll give you a few examples of organizations I'm involved with. I chair an event called the Afternoon in the Field. Some of you may have come. Every year, we throw a big concert at Pebble Hill Plantation to support the Thomasville Center for the Arts, of which I'm on the board. We may not be able to host a concert with 2,000 of our best friends next fall. So how are we going to raise funds for a nonprofit's important mission? What about the industry association? I just rotated off as president of our International Industry Association. We typically host an annual conference for thousands of our global members. That makes up 25% of the association's annual budget. In fact, that's where I'm supposed to be this week. Clearly, I'm not. What will our industry association do to make up that revenue shortfall? And how can we continue to add value for our members to stay so that they stay engaged and continue paying dues when we can't bring them together to physically network? This idea of pivoting and becoming a survivalist applies to all of us. Let's cut to the chase and the question everyone is asking right now, the reason you're here. So what's next? I'm going to spend the next few minutes breaking it down into questions you need to ask of yourself and of your organization to prepare you to make a big pivot. Question 1, are you a pilot or are you a passenger? Of course, no one's in complete control. You can't control the virus. You can't control any limitations set on your organization by government or other officials, but you can focus on what is within your control and take action there. That's a Dale Carnegie principle. You set the tone for yourself and your organization. If you look at this as something that will completely wreck your plans and ruin everything, you're right. And those around you will feed off of that negative energy. For example, I could tell you that the virus is ruining my track record of consecutive years of double-digit growth. It's true. If instead you look at this as a way to improve your business and find new opportunities to grow, to become more efficient, your organization will also feed off of that. So I'm okay with missing my growth numbers in 2020 because I have plans to double the size of our business over the next 2 years. Not a bad trade-off. Those who are poised to pivot aren't waiting around for anyone to tell them what to do. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we haven't waited for more stringent regulations or restrictions to be enforced. Instead, we accepted that changes we couldn't control were coming and planned for them weeks before they were enforced. I'll give you a few examples. We began communicating with our peers in Milan, Italy, who were roughly 11 days ahead of us, to help us formulate our plan before this affected us. We wanted to know what they were seeing from the government, what they were making changes, how they were making changes in their organization, what they were hearing from their clients. Facilitating weekly conversations with a network of industry peers around the country to discuss best practices. Some of our best ideas we don't come up with. They're shared by people that we care about, that trust us, and that we share information with. Preparing technology, processes, and people to work from home in a variety of scenarios. Planning for a reduced workforce or key team members who are incapacitated. Preparing for team members who don't feel safe coming to work or going to client locations, and making changes to our service practices to mitigate that risk. Often we would communicate with our client what we were going to do differently before they had the chance to tell us we want to suspend service because we don't feel comfortable with outside vendors coming in. And that saved us from losing revenue throughout the crisis. Budgeting for dramatically reduced sales. Determining when and how we would enforce our contract. Communicating regularly with our team and our clients to show them we're sensitive to their needs and confident in our ability to deliver. And finally, and most importantly, adjusting strategy regularly as circumstances required, with daily huddles of our management team, monthly meetings of the entire team to communicate clearly. Even though restrictions are easing now, we haven't changed our protocols. We still think we're in the beginning of this. We're going to do what we deem necessary and correct and make changes as we go. This ability to think for ourselves allows us to be nimble and control our own destiny. All right, time for another poll. This is to make sure you're not sleeping. We have a historic time ahead of us. And I think some of you are probably seeing influxes of money from places you never expected it. So the question is, if somebody gave you an extra $10,000 right now, what would you do with it? Would you invest it, put it in savings, pay down debt, or purchase some new toy? Oh, come on. Okay, finally, someone honest. That's great. Pay down debt seems to be the clear winner here. So I can see that half of you are paying down debt. Obviously a very conservative strategy and a great one, putting you in better position to take advantage coming out of this. This is actually a conversation we're having with our team internally, is they have money that comes in from the government, varying sources, our PPP funds that we're fortunate enough to line up for. We are coaching our individual team members on how they use this found money to get in a better, a more conservative position personally, in anticipation of a longer economic downturn. The amount of money floating around right now is really unprecedented. For some, it may be stimulus checks or tax returns. For others, it's PPP dollars or the lure of a good deal. TVs at Costco, for example, are priced at $1,200 right now. New vehicles are a great deal too. None of this is a coincidence. But the reality is, whether or not you can go axe throwing now or go out to get your hair cut, we're We're a long way from normal. A vaccine is months away, maybe even longer. And the economic impact has yet to be truly felt. We only had 2 weeks of economic disruption reported in first quarter earnings reports from public companies. So we're in for some medium-term volatility at best. And if you are only looking a few days or weeks ahead, you're going to miss the opportunity to pivot. Financial security is generally a prerequisite for making big changes to your business in a tough economy. Banks want to lend to people and businesses who have good credit and are financially stable. And while that seems unfair, it's true. It's hard to be in a position to take advantage of opportunities during turbulent economic times if your finances aren't in order. Recently, my partner, Powell, who's on the call today, LT22, and I discussed whether to make a distribution our primary source of income or to pay down debt. We decided that paying down debt would send the message to our bankers that when we come to them with a unique opportunity in the next few months or years, we want them to remember how we handled ourselves when times were tough, that we could be counted on to pay them back. I love this quote from Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway that says, "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked." If the tide's going out now and you're scrambling for some fig leaves, don't get discouraged. Start now by making sacrifice to short-term comforts to achieve longer-term goals. Small changes repeated month after month will make a big difference over longer periods of time, and it'll make you a better business on the other side of this, even if we aren't in for the disruption that we're expecting as a company. This is applicable in personal life too, whether it's changing where you grocery shop or cutting back on streaming services, or as one of our team members shared in our recent all-team meeting, just leaving the air conditioner off during this wonderful spring weather. That might not be an option in the next few weeks. It's also true in business. Now's the perfect time to renegotiate. I called our cell phone provider last week, and I was able in 10 minutes to get a 25% reduction of our total bill locked in for 2 years. All I had to do was ask nicely. We sold a truck this week that hadn't been on the road in months, and that reduced our annual insurance expense. We've challenged each of our managers to find savings by renegotiating, by consuming less, and by insourcing in their department wherever possible. An example is our daily cleaning regimen. We're not allowing outside vendors in, but we have shared the responsibility for cleaning spaces and high-touch areas in our office up to 4 or 5 times a day among our existing staff. You have to be willing to tighten your belt if you want to be positioned to make a pivot when the time comes. Question 3. Do you have clearly defined values, standards, and areas of expertise? The third part of managing a big pivot is to ensure that you maintain your values and high standards. And to maintain them, you must know what they are in the first place. You must also know what your area of expertise is. The ultimate measure of a man, according to Martin Luther King Jr., is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. You display your true values when times are difficult in the way you interact with your team, your vendors, and your clients. It's not just the right thing to do. It's the philosophical basis of a pivot. I'll give you a couple of examples of things that we're seeing that apply here. Our staff has had a lot of uncertainty about their jobs in the short and medium term. We've gone out of our way to communicate, show them our appreciation for their hard work during uncertain times, and give them confidence in our ability to withstand the economic headwinds we're facing, and motivate them with the growth opportunities we see on the other side. As our ownership has made sacrifices to create stability for our team, the goal has been to inspire loyalty among those we need to grow through this pivot. Challenging times create organic growth opportunities too. We've earned new relationships over the last 2 months as our competitors have failed to serve their clients due to poor communication, staffing cuts, or by being unresponsive to changing client needs, such as wearing masks and developing clear sanitation procedures. The third idea, new service practices present themselves. Early on, we created no contact shredding service for clients who didn't want vendors entering the building. The goal was to respond to the changing circumstances of what our clients expect, but also to preserve revenue from clients that we expected to tell us not to come until further notice. Clients have jumped on it, as have prospects. It's a way we differentiate ourselves against competitors in the new normal of a post-COVID world. And it's given us the opportunity to communicate what makes us different when typical sales messaging would fall flat. Nobody wants a cold call about, shredding service or whatever right now. But when you talk about the new best practices in the shredding industry, it's a totally different conversation. All right, what are you looking for? You need to have a checklist. If you're trying to figure out what to do next, don't just jump on the bandwagon of whatever trends start to pop up. Your pivot needs to fit with your organization's vision and values. Are you really going to manufacture PPE or deliver masks at home from now on? Set parameters for what you're looking for and base them on your values. Our long-term goal is to build a family of companies that share financial, management, technology, sales, and marketing resources. We think the next few years are going to create merger opportunities with businesses related to our current services, like other shredding companies, and other service businesses as entrepreneurs need an exit. We're looking to diversify over the long term. It doesn't have to be related to what we do now, but it does have to have certain values. And that's the important point here. While we've said our next deal doesn't have to be in a specific industry, such as past acquisitions, it does have to have certain parameters. And I've listed a few of those on the slide. But don't just focus on what it needs to have. You should also be specific about what's important it doesn't have. For example, businesses that have a negative effect on the environment are not consistent with our values. That's not something that we're going to pursue. The same with businesses in shrinking industries. You don't want to invite a future pivot where you can avoid it. And so we like to buy into industries that are growing. Make a checklist of your values as you consider pivot options. It'll help you evaluate what pivot will fit into your culture. Several years ago, everyone wanted to get into app developing. Hell, we even considered it as an analog paper storage business. But we realized technology development was not a core competency. And so we nixed it. We figured if we're going to rely on technology, we're going to partner with people who are experts and develop close relationships where we can feed one another business. And there's an example of that of another company in Tallahassee that specializes in software that we've aligned ourselves with, and we feed one another business. Making clear decisions about what is not a fit is very important. This helps us stay focused and not simply follow what emerges in the noise of a post-COVID world where everyone's trying to solve the same problem. Now, the new normal. While your pivot must be true to your business, it must also fit the current environment. This is an important distinction. As I said earlier, this doesn't mean jumping on the bandwagon of whatever's hot in a post-COVID era, but it must meet the standards of the new normal that's emerging. Football season, for example, near and dear to all of our hearts here in Tallahassee. It's uncertain this year, and if it does go on, it's certainly going to look different. In fact, this picture is from a Georgia Tech football game during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Look familiar? This was back when Tech had a football team. Zing. Anyone ever read the business parable, Who Moved My Cheese? If not, that's your homework today. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's a 30-minute read. The thesis is this: you have to be able to see past what was in order to see what is and what will be. If you can't fundraise with an event, what will the new environment call for? If you can't network at events, how does your LinkedIn profile look like? You have a choice. You pivot or you die. As I mentioned earlier, I understood back in 2011 that paper records were eventually going away. And we had a choice. Are we going to sell our business, the jobs that go with it, and go and start over somewhere else? Or are we going to pivot and do something differently? And we've developed a reputation over the last decade as leaders in our industry, mavericks who are navigating the future of an analog business. Right now, I'm actually in the process of launching a new company with my business partner and father, Powell, that will partner with SRS to focus on solutions specific to the healthcare industry. And while the business has been in the works for months, we've sped up the timeline in order to meet demand as a result of the financial crisis facing healthcare companies today. That's right, you heard me. We are starting a new business in the midst of a pandemic. All right, this is what we've been building to. Prepare, we're about to go to breakout, so I want you to really pay attention to this question. This is the number one takeaway from today's webinar. What are people looking for in the new normal environment that you are uniquely qualified to do? It brings all the other questions together. So now what? As an example for SRS, we've boiled it down to this one statement. SRS is leveraging our current infrastructure, particularly in the areas of finance, marketing, sales, logistics, and management, to grow inorganically via mergers or acquisitions. We're having this conversation with every level of our team, with our centers of influence that we work with, like bankers and CPAs, and with our friends as we talk to them in the marketplace. We are looking for opportunities to grow. This is what it looks like. If you see something, let's talk about it. All right, now it's your turn. This is going to take more than 10 minutes to answer in your own life and career. So instead, we thought it would be consistent with Leadership Tallahassee's values to practice by solving one of the biggest problems that Tallahassee's largest industries are going to face in a post-COVID world. After all, we're challenged by our LT experience to solve these kinds of problems for our community, right? So this focus on anticipating and meeting challenges for the community is one of the things I love most about my LT33 experience. We're going to split the audience into 5 groups. Amanda is going to automatically assign you randomly to a different breakout session, okay? And then at the end of 10 minutes, you're going to be pulled back into this main session. So keep your conversation efficient. All right, each group is going to need a leader, and we've solved that problem for you. The person whose birthday is closest to today will act as facilitator for your group and also report on your findings when we come back together in 10 minutes. So please pay attention to the industry your group is tasked with creating a big pivot for as we consider the new normal of that industry's role in Tallahassee. All right, here are the 5 groups. Group 1, government. Group 2, education. Group 3, healthcare. Group 4, manufacturing. And Group 5, service and hospitality. We want you to discuss how your assigned industry can pivot and succeed in the new normal. What are you going to be doing in 3 months that's different if FSU is considering, for example, whether or not to have classes here in Tallahassee? All right. So, Amanda, if you would split us all up into our various groups.
Your topic is going to be at the top of your breakout room. So you'll be able to see that in the top left. It's government education, so on, as Christopher said. So we're opening now, and you'll have to join.
All right. We need like a 60-second max update on what you've discovered for your group. And if you can make it 30, you get bonus points. All right. So start one with the government group. What did you guys land on?
I was the leader for the government group. We talked about a different couple of things. First one we all came to agreement on was not setting on all these unnecessary bureaucratic regulations once the pandemic starts to end, and setting all these rules and regulations that don't serve the people benefits in the long run, or going off like on little things and putting people in jail for little things and finding people for worthless stuff and everything and all that. So not being too over aggressive on the rules and policy making. Also, another thing, don't come out of the gate raising taxes. People are trying to recover financially. And also more along the lines is the government is here to help the people, not hurt them.
That reminds me of a joke, but we don't have time for it. Another time. All right. Moving on to the next group, group 2, education. What are we doing in the new normal? Next fall are FSU students coming back to Doak Campbell Stadium?
I don't think they are personally, but we didn't really talk about that. But we also didn't decide whether FSU students were coming back at all. I think that's still a very big question for everyone. Education has some really unique problems because by default it is large groups of people getting together on a pretty regular basis, and it's really hard to get that under control and make sure that there's no spread. So what we kind of talked about was testing really has to be a huge part. If we are going to introduce kids back into the schools, we have to test regularly and make sure that we're contact tracing and quarantining kids who test positive. And then, figuring out a way to break up the school day, whether it's an A day, B day, whether it's a, half the kids go to school in the morning and the other kids have to go to school in the afternoon, and we figure out a way to social distance kids within the classrooms and put teachers behind acrylic, plastic to teach, whatever it is. But, there are some real challenges for the education system. And I don't know that anybody really has the answer at this point, unfortunately.
Well, 10 minutes is, and really less than 10 minutes, is an unfair amount of time to solve some really big problems. But the fact remains that these are the biggest industries in our region, and that the second wave of business failures comes not from businesses that were affected by the initial crisis, but the businesses that did business with them. And these 5 categories are huge sectors of our clients. So we have a role in Tallahassee to help these industries adjust and make decisions so that we come out as a community more prepared to compete than others. All right, how about group 3, a quick report?
Right.
That's healthcare.
Healthcare. We were focusing on more of the telemed type appointments for the patients that can use it. Not all patients can use it based on age or based on the type of appointment they're going to, as well as communication among various doctors' offices, because right now there's probably not a ton of communication, as well as focusing on the employees in that industry and their hazard pay, because not everyone probably has that, especially if they are around those type of patients.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And telemedicine has been kind of a by provider choice. It may not be going forward, and we may have a role as a community in expediting some of these changes. I know one of the conflicts y'all were worried about is elderly patients who have a larger consumption of healthcare and a lower capacity for using telemedicine. So maybe the community has a role in improving that. Thanks for that. Okay, what about our group 4, manufacturing? What are we manufacturing in the next few months?
So although none of us really knew anything about the industry, the small industries that are here creating, they adjusted and started creating different things to help some of the service industry and events. They started creating signs, masks, face shields, antibacterial stuff that they normally wouldn't do, such as divvy up socks. So they went from socks to face masks to supplies to the entire community. So it looks like they were able to already adjust to the demands and then keep in tabs with what the industry regulations are so that they can help other people in the different fields.
That's a great point. I use my Proof hand sanitizer on a daily basis, even though it smells like tequila and makes me feel like it's Friday afternoon.
I bought it for moving in August, and it doesn't smell good, but it works.
Yeah, you got to be careful on Cinco de Mayo with that stuff. Group 5, service and hospitality. What are we doing differently this fall?
Well, you have to hear from Christopher's dad. This is Powell, class 23. A great group, including Becky Tolley with 25 years in the hospitality industry. So a few comments. The hotel industry is extremely busy pivoting right now, as you would expect. Social distancing is a big part of what they're doing different. App check-ins, also using your app for keyless entry in lodging, electrostatic equipment for sanitizing rooms. So there are a lot of creative things going on. Some of the ideas we had, if football comes back to Tallahassee this fall, which perhaps it will, but the stadium may look a lot different with social distancing. And so the lodging folks should consider, how do they have the party at the hotel, room by room by room? What do they do differently to continue to attract people to Tallahassee? We hope they can. We've seen great examples in the restaurant business with organizations never involved in takeaway meals that are doing it in a phenomenal way. One example was Chicken Salad Chick of Tallahassee, who is setting up zones to deliver to Thomasville and other outlying communities and having a huge impact with traffic jams in some of those locations where they have pickup points. We've seen the same thing. I picked up sushi in Tallahassee. Very unique, the front door scenario going on where you sit in your car, you dial in, they deliver to your door side. So we're seeing some inventiveness that's having a real impact on the hospitality side. So what's coming? those organizations that are pivoting, we have great examples already in the community, and we will see more.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So just a final wrap up. I know that we're out of time. I hope that this quick breakout exercise has helped you think outside of the box. And my challenge to you is to go out and apply these 5 principles to your own organization. Become the pilot in your own life. Take control of what you can control. Of course, we can't control the virus or mandates from the government, but we can control the way we respond to them. See the big picture. Be willing to sacrifice now to meet your long-term goals. Know thyself. Understand your own standards, values, and unique skill sets. Take time to understand the new environment we're in and think about what necessitates. And the big one, the question that brings it all together. Find out what you are uniquely qualified to do that people will need in this era of the new normal. You guys hinted on it with each of your groups, and what those industries have to deliver may just need to change the way that they deliver it or what it is that they're delivering. But the process for delivering it is what they're experts in. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Leadership Tallahassee for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun for me and our team to think about our reaction so far and what's coming down the pipe. And if I can be a resource to any of you, I want you to feel free to reach out to me. I've got my phone number and email right here. So feel free to reach out directly. I'd love to chat, even if it's by Zoom. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you all for attending and sticking with us. We are going to send out a survey for this, as well as the recorded version and other materials such as Christopher's information and the PowerPoint slides. So thank you so much. You can expect a follow-up email from us shortly within the next week about all of those things. So take the survey to help us continue to improve this workshop. We really want it to be interactive. We have, I'll let you know, the first people here, that in 2 weeks we will have a legislative wrap-up session with our local legislators, state legislators, for the next Tallahassee Leads Here. So you'll be getting information in your inbox about that. But stay tuned and have a great week. Thanks, guys. It was great to see all of your faces.
Y'all stay healthy. Go wash your hands.
Be well. Bye.